The screen fades in, not with dramatic music or sweeping visuals, but with silence. A silence so heavy it feels almost oppressive, the kind of quiet that makes you lean forward, curious about what's coming next. And then, there he is, Ethan Kross. He sits at his desk, an imposing figure surrounded by sleek monitors displaying endless streams of data, stock prices ticking upward like a heartbeat. His office is pristine. Everything has its place, nothing out of order. Yet something feels off. Ethan's face is a mask of stoicism. His eyes are sharp, calculating, but they lack warmth. They're not just cold, they're empty, as if all the life inside him had been drained away long ago. You can see it in the way he moves, mechanical, precise, as though every gesture is rehearsed. Even the pen in his hand seems more alive than he does. He signs document after document without hesitation, his expression unchanging. There's no joy here, no satisfaction, just routine. But who is this man? Who is Ethan Kross? Let me tell you, Ethan was born into privilege, or so it seemed from the outside. His parents were ambitious entrepreneurs who saw their son not as a child, but as an investment. From the moment he could hold a pencil, they pushed him to excel. Math problems replaced bedtime stories. Chess tournaments took precedence over playdates. By the time he was 10, Ethan could recite profit margins and market trends better than most adults. But at what cost? He never had friends, never played sports, never laughed freely. Every ounce of energy went into one goal, proving himself worthy of his family's expectations, and prove himself he did. At 28, Ethan became the youngest CEO of a tech empire worth billions. His company revolutionized artificial intelligence, creating algorithms that changed industries overnight. People called him a genius, a visionary. Some even whispered prodigy when they thought he couldn't hear. But none of those words mattered to Ethan. Success wasn't enough to fill the void inside him. Money didn't bring happiness. Power didn't ease the loneliness gnawing at his soul. You might wonder why someone with everything would feel this way. Why doesn't he smile? Why does he seem so detached from the world around him? The truth is, Ethan doesn't know either. He spent years trying to outrun his own emptiness, burying himself in work because it's easier than facing the questions he can't answer. What does it mean to truly live, to connect, to feel? These are mysteries Ethan has avoided his entire life. As the camera lingers on his face, capturing the faintest flicker of unease behind his otherwise impenetrable facade, we begin to understand. Ethan isn't just a man without a smile. He's a man without purpose, without meaning, without humanity. Now imagine being in his shoes. Imagine carrying that weight every single day. If you've ever felt lost, stuck in a cycle of achievement, without fulfillment, you'll relate to Ethan's struggle. And if you want to uncover how his journey unfolds, if you want to discover whether he finds redemption, you should consider subscribing to this channel. Because trust me, this story is far from over. Slowly, the focus shifts. The camera pans across the room, revealing the vast expanse of Ethan's corner office. Floor-to-ceiling windows offer breathtaking views of the city skyline, yet Ethan barely notices them. His attention remains fixed on the papers before him, as though afraid to look anywhere else, afraid of what he might see or fail to see in the reflection of the glass. And then, almost imperceptibly, another presence enters the frame. She moves quietly, deliberately, her footsteps muffled by soft-soled shoes. Her name is Clara Bennett, and she is about to change everything, for both Ethan and for us. The camera follows Clara as she glides through the room, her movements fluid and unobtrusive. She carries a bucket filled with cleaning supplies, its contents clinking softly against one another, a stark contrast to the sterile silence that Ethan inhabits. At first glance, she seems like just another faceless employee, someone whose existence blends seamlessly into the background of this corporate fortress. But there's something about her demeanor, something almost magnetic, that draws your attention despite her attempts to remain unnoticed. Clara is in her late 30s, though her warm smile and gentle eyes make her appear younger than she is. Her hands are calloused from years of hard work, yet they move with care and precision as she dusts the edges of Ethan's desk. Her dark hair is tied back in a loose bun, strands escaping here and there, framing her face in a way that feels effortlessly real. She wears simple clothes, faded jeans, and a plain sweater. But there's an elegance to her presence, a quiet dignity that transcends material wealth. Who is Clara Bennett? Unlike Ethan, Clara wasn't born into privilege. In fact, her life has been anything but easy. Born and raised in a small town where opportunities were scarce, she grew up watching her parents struggle to make ends meet. From a young age, she learned the value of resilience and resourcefulness. When she married at 22, she hoped for stability, for love, but life had other plans. Her husband turned out to be unreliable, often absent, and eventually walked out on her when their son, Liam, was only 5 years old. Suddenly, Clara found herself alone, responsible not only for her own survival, but also for raising a child. It wasn't easy. There were nights when she went to bed hungry so Liam could eat, days when she worked double shifts, scrubbing floors and washing dishes just to keep a roof over their heads. Yet through it all, Clara never lost her spirit. She refused to let bitterness consume her. Instead, she chose gratitude for the little things, the moments of light amidst the darkness. Whether it was watching Liam laugh during a rare trip to the park or finding solace in the melody of a song she hummed while working, Clara found beauty even in the hardest times. This ability to find joy in simplicity is what makes Clara extraordinary. While others might have crumbled under the weight of her circumstances, she stood tall. And now here she is, standing in the office of one of the most powerful men in the world, quietly going about her duties as if she belongs there, as if she owns the space as much as he does. As Clara works, she begins to sing softly under her breath. It's a folk tune, familiar yet hauntingly beautiful. The lyrics speak of hope and perseverance, of finding strength in unexpected places. Her voice isn't perfect. It wavers slightly, carrying traces of exhaustion, but it's genuine, honest. For a brief moment, the sterile atmosphere of Ethan's office transforms. The air feels lighter, warmer, as though Clara's presence has infused it with life. Ethan hears her. Of course he does. Nothing escapes his notice. At first, he pretends not to react, continuing to review documents as though nothing has changed. But deep down, something stirs within him. He's never heard anyone sing in his office before. Hell, he's barely heard anyone talk, unless absolutely necessary. Most people tiptoe around him, intimidated by his reputation, afraid to disturb the carefully constructed bubble of control he's built around himself. But Clara doesn't seem afraid. She moves with confidence, as though she has every right to be there, as though she knows something he doesn't. Curiosity gets the better of him. Slowly, almost reluctantly, Ethan lifts his gaze from the papers in front of him. His eyes land on Clara, studying her with the same intensity he reserves for analyzing market trends or dissecting quarterly reports. He notices the way her brow furrows slightly as she concentrates on removing a stubborn stain from the corner of his desk. He sees the faint lines around her mouth, evidence of countless smiles given freely to those who needed them. And then there's her posture. Not submissive, not apologetic, but strong, grounded. For reasons he can't quite articulate, Ethan feels unsettled. This woman shouldn't matter. She's just a cleaner, someone whose name he probably wouldn't remember if asked tomorrow. Yet here she is, disrupting the monotony of his day in ways he hadn't anticipated. Her singing lingers in his mind long after the last note fades, leaving behind a question he can't ignore. How does someone like her maintain such grace in the face of adversity? The interaction between them starts small, almost accidental. As Clara finishes tidying up, Ethan clears his throat, a sound so sharp it startles her momentarily. She turns to look at him, her expression calm but curious. "Yes, Mr. Cross?" she asks, her tone polite but not deferential. There's no trace of fear in her voice, only quiet respect. Ethan hesitates, caught off guard by his own uncertainty. He hadn't planned to speak to her, hadn't intended to acknowledge her existence beyond the periphery of his awareness. But now that he's started, he can't stop. "I need your opinion on something." Clara raises an eyebrow, clearly surprised. My opinion? Yes. Ethan gestures vaguely toward a stack of folders on his desk. These proposals, they're problematic. I thought perhaps you could offer some insight. It's a test, of course, a calculated move designed to assert dominance, to remind her of the vast chasm separating their worlds. After all, what could a cleaner possibly know about high-stakes business decisions? But Clara doesn't flinch. Instead, she steps closer, her gaze steady, as she examines the documents he points to. For a few seconds, she says nothing, simply absorbing the information before her. Then, with surprising clarity, she speaks. These ideas, she begins, her voice measured, they're too complicated, too focused on impressing people instead of solving problems. Sometimes, the simplest solutions are the best ones. Her words hit Ethan like a punch to the gut, not because they're groundbreaking, they're not, but because they're true. Painfully, glaringly true. He's spent months obsessing over these proposals, tweaking them endlessly in pursuit of perfection. Yet somehow this woman, a stranger with no formal training in business strategy, has identified their flaw in mere seconds. Explain, Ethan demands, leaning forward slightly. His tone is sharp, almost confrontational, but there's an edge of vulnerability beneath it, a flicker of interest he can't suppress. Clara meets his gaze without hesitation. Think about it, she says. When was the last time you solved a problem by making it more complicated? People want answers they can understand, solutions they can trust. If you try too hard to dazzle them, you'll lose them. Ethan stares at her, stunned. No one has ever spoken to him like this before. Not his board members, not his advisors, certainly not his employees. They tiptoe around him, sugar-coating their criticisms or avoiding them altogether. But Clara doesn't play games. She tells the truth, plain and simple, as though she has nothing to lose. And maybe she doesn't. Their conversation continues, stretching longer than either of them expected. Clara shares anecdotes from her own life, how she once fixed a leaky faucet using duct tape and determination, how she taught Liam to tie his shoes by breaking the process into manageable steps. Each story reinforces the same lesson: simplicity, patience, persistence. These are the tools that get you through life's toughest challenges. By the time Clara finishes cleaning and leaves the office, Ethan is left reeling. His mind races with questions, doubts, possibilities. Who is this woman? Why does she see the world so differently from everyone else he knows? And why does her perspective feel so refreshing? As the camera lingers on Ethan's face once more, we see the faintest hint of change. His jaw is tense, his brow furrowed, but there's something new in his eyes, something softer, something human. If you're enjoying this unfolding story, if you're intrigued by the dynamic between Ethan and Clara, consider subscribing to our channel, because the journey is just beginning, and the next chapter promises to delve even deeper into their connection. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. The next morning, Ethan arrives at the office earlier than usual. It's a habit of his, starting the day before anyone else, as though claiming the quiet hours for himself gives him some semblance of control over the chaos that inevitably follows. But today feels different. Today he finds himself glancing toward the door more often than he cares to admit, wondering when Clara will arrive. When she finally does, carrying her familiar bucket of cleaning supplies, Ethan feels an inexplicable sense of relief. He watches her from behind his desk, pretending to focus on his laptop screen while secretly observing her every move. She hums softly again, this time a different tune, a melody that seems to carry echoes of resilience and hope. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but it fills the room with a warmth Ethan hasn't felt in years. Clara notices him watching her, though she doesn't let on immediately. Instead, she goes about her tasks with the same quiet efficiency she always does, dusting shelves, wiping down surfaces, and straightening items that don't need straightening. Eventually, she pauses near his desk, tilting her head slightly, as if sensing his unspoken curiosity. "You're staring," she says, her tone light but direct. There's no accusation in her voice, just a gentle acknowledgement of the obvious. Ethan blinks, caught off guard by her candor. "I wasn't," he replies reflexively, though the faint flush creeping up his neck betrays him. Clara smirks, a small but genuine smile that softens her features. Sure you weren't. For a moment, neither of them speaks. The silence between them isn't awkward. It's charged, electric, as if both are waiting for the other to make the first move. Finally, Ethan clears his throat, leaning back in his chair. "You mentioned something yesterday," he begins, his voice measured but tinged with uncertainty, "about simplicity being key to solving problems." Clara nods, setting down her cleaning cloth and turning to face him fully. "That's right. Why? Still stuck on those proposals?" "I'm not stuck," Ethan snaps, defensive instinct kicking in. Then, catching himself, he exhales sharply and rubs his temples. "But yes, I haven't been able to stop thinking about what you said." This admission surprises even him. Ethan Cross, the man who prides himself on self-reliance, on never needing anyone else, is admitting vulnerability. To a cleaner, no less. And yet, there's a strange comfort in saying it aloud, as if giving voice to his doubts makes them less overwhelming. Clara studies him for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "Well," she says slowly, "maybe it's time to try a new approach. Tell me more about these proposals. What exactly are they supposed to achieve?" And so Ethan explains. He talks about the project, a cutting-edge AI platform designed to streamline operations for multinational corporations. He describes the technical specifications, the projected revenue streams, the competitive advantages. As he speaks, Clara listens intently, nodding occasionally but never interrupting. When he finishes, she leans against the edge of his desk, arms crossed loosely over her chest. "So basically," she summarizes, "you're trying to sell something incredibly complex to people who probably don't have the time or patience to understand it." Ethan frowns. "That's one way of putting it. It's the truth, though, isn't it?" Clara presses gently. "Think about your audience. CEOs, executives, they're busy, overwhelmed, most likely. If you throw too much information at them, they'll tune out. You need to simplify, focus on the benefits, not the mechanics." Her words resonate deeply with Ethan, not just because they're practical, but because they challenge his entire worldview. For years, he's equated complexity with sophistication, believing that the more intricate a solution, the more valuable it must be. But now, hearing Clara break it down in such straightforward terms, he begins to see the flaw in his logic. "What would you do differently?" he asks, surprising himself once again with his willingness to seek her input. Clara shrugs modestly. "If it were me, I'd start with a story, something relatable. Show them how this platform can solve a real problem they're facing, not just theoretically, but practically. Make it personal. A story. Personalization. These concepts feel foreign to Ethan, almost alien. In his world, success is measured in numbers, in data points and profit margins. Emotions are liabilities, distractions to be minimized or eliminated entirely. Yet Clara's suggestion strikes a chord within him, awakening a part of his mind he didn't realize had gone dormant. Over the next few days, their interactions become more frequent. Clara continues her cleaning duties, but now there's an unspoken understanding between them. She stops by his office during breaks, sharing snippets of her life, how she juggles work and motherhood, how she finds joy in the smallest victories, like Liam acing a spelling test, or mastering a new recipe for dinner. In return, Ethan opens up in ways he never has before, revealing fragments of his own struggles, the pressure from his parents, the relentless pursuit of perfection, the gnawing emptiness that no amount of success can fill. Through these conversations, Ethan begins to see Clara not as a cleaner, but as a person, a remarkable individual whose strength and wisdom far exceed the boundaries of her job title. He admires her resilience, her ability to find meaning in the mundane. More than that, he envies her. Envy isn't an emotion Ethan is accustomed to feeling. It unsettles him, forcing him to confront uncomfortable truths about himself. One evening, as the sun dips below the horizon and bathes the city in hues of orange and pink, Ethan finds himself lingering in his office long after everyone else has left. Clara is still there, finishing up her rounds. He watches her through the glass walls, marveling at the ease with which she moves through the space. She seems so at peace, so content, in a way he's never experienced. "Why do you stay here?" he blurts out suddenly, startling both of them. Clara turns to look at him, puzzled. Stay where? In this job, cleaning offices. Isn't it beneath you? Clara laughs softly, shaking her head. Beneath me? No. This job pays my bills, helps me take care of Liam. It's honest work. Besides, she hesitates, her gaze drifting toward the window. Sometimes the simplest things are the most meaningful, like knowing I've made someone's workspace a little brighter, a little cleaner. That matters. Her response leaves Ethan speechless. He's spent his entire life chasing accolades, climbing ladders, amassing wealth, and yet, standing here now, listening to Clara talk about finding purpose in scrubbing floors, he feels profoundly inadequate. How could someone with so little possess so much clarity, while he, with all his resources, remains lost? As the night wears on, their conversation deepens. Clara shares stories of her childhood, of growing up poor but surrounded by love. She talks about her parents' sacrifices, their unwavering belief in her potential despite their limited means. Ethan listens intently, captivated not just by her words but by the emotion behind them. For the first time in his life, he begins to understand what it means to truly connect with another human being. By the time Clara gathers her things to leave, Ethan feels a shift within himself, a subtle but undeniable change. He thanks her. His voice quieter than usual, almost reverent. As she walks away, he realizes something extraordinary. For the first time in years, he feels alive. Not just existing, but alive. If you're moved by Ethan's transformation, if you're curious to see how this unlikely friendship will evolve further, I encourage you to subscribe to our channel. Because the journey is only beginning, and the chapters ahead promise to explore even deeper layers of connection, conflict, and growth. Stay tuned. The days that follow are a whirlwind for Ethan. Clara's insights have sparked something within him, a flicker of inspiration that grows into a roaring fire. He begins reworking the AI platform proposal, stripping away the unnecessary complexity and focusing instead on storytelling, just as Clara suggested. He imagines scenarios where the platform solves real-world problems, crafting narratives that highlight its practical applications rather than drowning potential clients in technical jargon. For the first time in his career, Ethan feels a sense of purpose beyond profit margins. He's not just building software. He's creating solutions that could genuinely improve lives. But as with any significant change, resistance isn't far behind. It starts subtly, a raised eyebrow during a board meeting when Ethan presents his revised pitch. His CFO, a grizzled veteran of corporate warfare named Victor Lang, leans back in his chair, arms crossed, skepticism etched across his face. This simplification, Victor says, his tone dripping with disdain, it undermines the sophistication of our product. Clients expect cutting-edge innovation, not bedtime stories. Ethan bristles but keeps his composure. Innovation doesn't mean inaccessible, he counters. If we can't communicate value clearly, no one will care how advanced it is. Victory smirks, unconvinced. Careful, Ethan. You're starting to sound like a marketing intern. The comment stings, but Ethan refuses to back down. He knows Clara was right. Complexity for complexity's sake alienates people. Still, the tension in the room is palpable. The rest of the board members exchange uneasy glances, unsure whether to side with their CEO or defer to Victor's decades of experience. Ethan senses the cracks forming in his carefully constructed empire, cracks that threaten to widen if he doesn't act decisively. Meanwhile, outside the boardroom, another storm brews. Rumors spread among employees about Ethan's sudden shift in strategy. Some applaud his willingness to embrace simplicity, seeing it as a sign of humility and adaptability. Others, however, view it as weakness, a betrayal of the ruthless efficiency that made the company successful in the first place. Whispers echo through the halls. He's losing his edge. What happened to the old Ethan? Ethan hears the murmurs, of course. He always does. But this time, they don't anger him. Instead, they fuel his determination. He spends late nights poring over data, refining his pitch until it's razor sharp. He consults with Clara regularly, bouncing ideas off her and incorporating her feedback. Their collaboration becomes a lifeline for him, grounding him when doubt threatens to pull him under. One evening, as Clara tidies up his office, Ethan looks up from his laptop and sighs heavily. "I'm starting to think I might have bitten off more than I can chew," he admits, running a hand through his hair. The stress is evident in his posture, his voice tinged with exhaustion. Clara pauses mid-motion, setting down her cleaning supplies and turning to face him. "You're doing the right thing," she says firmly. "Change is hard, especially when everyone's used to the way things were. But sometimes you have to shake things up to make progress." Her words are reassuring, but Ethan shakes his head. "It's not just about shaking things up. It's about proving I'm still capable of leading this company. If I fail..." He trails off, unable to finish the sentence. Clara steps closer, her expression softening. "Failure isn't the end, Ethan. It's part of the process. What matters is how you respond. Do you believe in what you're doing?" Ethan hesitates, then nods slowly. "Yes, I do." "Then, don't let anyone take that away from you," Clara says, her voice steady and unwavering. "Trust yourself. Trust the vision." Her confidence bolsters him, giving him the strength to push forward despite the mounting pressure. Over the next few weeks, Ethan throws himself into preparing for the launch event, determined to prove his detractors wrong. He rehearses his presentation tirelessly, fine-tuning every detail until it's flawless. Clara attends several dry runs, offering constructive criticism and encouragement. Her presence calms his nerves, reminding him why he embarked on this path in the first place. Finally, the day of the launch arrives. The venue is a sleek auditorium filled with industry leaders, investors, and media representatives. Cameras flash as attendees mingle, sipping champagne and speculating about the mysterious new direction of Ethan's company. Behind the scenes, Ethan paces nervously, adjusting his tie for the 100th time. Clara stands nearby, watching him with quiet concern. "You've got this," she tells him, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. "Just breathe." Ethan meets her gaze, gratitude swelling in his chest. "Thank you," he says simply, meaning it with every fiber of his being. When Ethan takes the stage, the room falls silent. He begins his presentation, speaking with a clarity and conviction that surprises even himself. He tells the story of a struggling logistics firm overwhelmed by inefficiencies, detailing how the AI platform transformed their operations and saved them millions. He shares testimonials from beta testers, emphasizing the tangible impact of the technology on their businesses, and throughout it all, he speaks not as a distant CEO, but as a human being, connecting with his audience on a personal level. By the time he concludes, the room erupts into applause. People rise to their feet, cheering and clapping enthusiastically. Ethan scans the crowd, searching for Clara. When their eyes meet, she gives him a small, proud smile that says everything without uttering a word. Backstage, the celebration is short-lived. As Ethan fields congratulatory remarks from colleagues and reporters, Victor approaches him, his expression unreadable. "Well," Victor says, his voice low, "you certainly proved me wrong. Congratulations." Ethan nods curtly, unsure whether to trust the olive branch. "Thank you, but don't get too comfortable," Victor adds, his tone sharpening slightly. "There are still plenty of people who aren't convinced. This victory won't silence them forever." The warning hangs in the air, a reminder that Ethan's battle is far from over. Yet, as he watches Clara slip out of the venue unnoticed, he realizes something crucial. None of this would have been possible without her. She believed in him when no one else did, guided him when he was lost, and reminded him of the humanity at the heart of business. As the camera lingers on Ethan's face, we see a mixture of triumph and vulnerability. He's achieved a monumental success, but the cost has been high, and the road ahead remains uncertain. If you're invested in Ethan's journey, if you want to see how he navigates the challenges still looming on the horizon, consider subscribing to our channel, because the stakes are higher than ever, and the next chapter promises to deliver a climax that will leave you breathless. The aftermath of the launch event is a blur of activity. Reporters clamor for interviews, investors call to congratulate Ethan on his bold vision, and social media buzzes with praise for the company's innovative approach. On paper, it's a resounding success. But beneath the surface, cracks begin to form. Cracks that threaten to shatter everything Ethan has worked so hard to build. Victor Lang's warning proves prophetic. Within days, whispers of dissent ripple through the boardroom. Some shareholders express concern over Ethan's softening, accusing him of prioritizing sentimentality over profitability. Others question whether the simplified pitch will alienate high-profile clients who expect cutting-edge complexity. Even employees, emboldened by the uncertainty, start voicing doubts about Ethan's leadership. Ethan feels the pressure mounting, but this time, he doesn't retreat into isolation. Instead, he seeks out Clara. She becomes his confidant, his anchor in the storm. Late at night, after everyone else has left the office, they sit together in his dimly lit workspace, discussing strategies and sharing stories. Clara listens intently, offering insights that are both practical and deeply human. "You can't control what other people think," she tells him one evening, her voice steady but kind. "All you can do is stay true to yourself. If you believe in what you're doing, that's all that matters." Her words resonate with Ethan, but they also force him to confront a truth he's been avoiding. Staying true to himself means acknowledging the person he's become, and the role Clara has played in shaping that transformation. For weeks now, their relationship has transcended professional boundaries. What began as an unlikely mentorship has evolved into something deeper, more intimate. Yet, neither of them has dared to name it. One night, after another grueling day of navigating corporate politics, Ethan finally breaks the silence. They're standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office, the city lights twinkling like stars below. Clara is gazing out at the skyline, lost in thought, when Ethan speaks. "Clara," he begins, his voice hesitant, "there's something I need to say." She turns to face him, her expression curious but guarded. "What is it?" Ethan takes a deep breath, steeling himself. "I don't know how to thank you for everything. You've changed my life in ways I never thought possible." Clara smiles softly, though there's a flicker of sadness in her eyes. "You did the work, Ethan. I just gave you a nudge." "No," he insists, stepping closer. "It's more than that. You made me see, made me feel things I'd forgotten were possible. Hope, connection, joy." He pauses, searching her face. "I care about you, Clara. More than I should, maybe, but I can't ignore it anymore." For a moment, Clara says nothing. Her gaze drops to the floor, and Ethan fears he's crossed a line. Then she looks up, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Ethan," she says gently, "you have no idea how much your words mean to me. But we're different people. Our worlds don't overlap. How could this ever work?" Her response stings, but Ethan understands her hesitation. He knows the challenges they face, the societal expectations, the power imbalance, the sheer improbability of their union. But none of that diminishes the depth of his feelings. "I'm not asking for easy," he says earnestly. "I'm asking for real, for honest. I want to be better, for you, for myself, for everyone who depends on me. And I think, You make me want to try." Clara studies him, her heart warring with her head. Finally, she nods slowly. "Okay," she whispers, "let's take it one step at a time." Their tentative agreement marks a turning point, not just in their relationship, but in Ethan's journey towards self-discovery. Over the following weeks, they navigate their connection carefully, balancing professionalism with growing affection. Ethan introduces Clara to Liam, his son, during a casual dinner at a quiet cafe. To Ethan's relief, Liam warms to him immediately, chatting animatedly about school and video games. Watching Clara interact with her son, Ethan sees a side of her he hadn't fully appreciated before, a nurturing strength that makes her even more extraordinary in his eyes. Meanwhile, Ethan continues to champion the values Clara instilled in him. He implements policies aimed at improving employee well-being, such as flexible working hours and mental health support programs. He partners with nonprofits to leverage the AI platform for social good, helping underserved communities access resources they desperately need. These changes aren't universally embraced. Some critics accuse him of diluting the company's focus, but Ethan remains steadfast. For the first time in his life, he leads not out of obligation or ambition, but out of genuine conviction. But just as things seem to stabilize, a new crisis emerges, one that tests Ethan and Clara's bond like never before. The crisis unfolds unexpectedly. A whistleblower within the company leaks documents alleging unethical practices in the development of the AI platform. Allegations of data misuse and privacy violations dominate headlines, casting a shadow over Ethan's recent successes. The backlash is swift and brutal. Investors demand answers. Employees grow restless. Public trust plummets. Ethan is devastated, not because the allegations are entirely false, but because they expose uncomfortable truths about the compromises he made early in his career. In his relentless pursuit of success, he had turned a blind eye to certain shortcuts taken by his team. Now those decisions have come back to haunt him. As the scandal escalates, Ethan faces a choice: protect his reputation by downplaying the accusations and shifting blame onto subordinates, or take full responsibility and risk losing everything he's built. It's a decision that will define not only his legacy but also his character. He turns to Clara for guidance, seeking solace in her wisdom. Sitting across from her in a secluded park bench, far from prying eyes, he lays bare his fears. "If I admit fault," he says, his voice trembling, "it could destroy the company. Everything I've worked for, gone." Clara reaches out, placing a reassuring hand on his. "Or it could save you," she replies softly. "People respect honesty, Ethan. They might forgive mistakes if you show them you're willing to learn and grow." Her words strike a chord within him. After a sleepless night wrestling with doubt and fear, Ethan makes his decision. At a press conference the next morning, he steps up to the podium, his demeanor calm but resolute. "I won't deny the allegations against us," he begins, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "They reveal flaws, not just in our processes, but in my leadership. I failed to hold myself and my team accountable, and for that I am deeply sorry. But I promise you this: we will fix what's broken. We will rebuild trust, not through excuses, but through action." The room falls silent, stunned by his candor. Cameras flash as reporters scramble to capture the historic moment. When Ethan finishes speaking, applause erupts, not thunderous, but sincere. It's a small victory, but one rooted in integrity. Behind the scenes, Clara watches the broadcast on a tablet, tears streaming down her face. She knows the road ahead will be difficult, but she also knows Ethan has taken the first step toward redemption. In the weeks that follow, Ethan's admission sparks a wave of unexpected outcomes. While some investors pull out, others double down. Impressed by his transparency, competitors mock his vulnerability, but customers rally around the company, praising its commitment to ethical practices. Slowly but surely, the tide begins to turn. Amidst the chaos, Ethan and Clara's relationship deepens. They weather the storm together, leaning on each other for strength and support. One evening, as they walk hand in hand along a moonlit beach, Ethan stops suddenly and turns to Clara. "I love you," he says simply, his voice filled with certainty. "Not because you saved my company, but because you saved me." Clara smiles, her heart swelling with emotion. "I love you too," she replies, "and I always will." Months later, Ethan stands on stage at a charity gala, accepting an award for corporate responsibility. Beside him, Clara beams with pride, her presence, a testament to the transformative power of connection. Together, they announce the launch of a foundation dedicated to empowering underprivileged communities through technology. As the camera pans out, capturing the couple surrounded by friends, family, and supporters, a narrator's voice reflects, "Sometimes the greatest victories aren't measured in dollars or accolades, but in the lives we touch and the hearts we heal." The screen fades to black, leaving viewers with a final message. If this story inspired you, consider subscribing to our channel, because every journey begins with a single step, and yours might just change the world.